Hello and welcome. My name is Yochai. I'm the Vice President of Sales in CYE, and please join me in the next few minutes to discover how CYE is helping to build more resilient cybersecurity organizations. CYE was founded in 2012, 7 years ago, and the people who founded CYE were actually also the people who founded the Israeli National Red Team. Red Team is the team that is trying to use offensive techniques to challenge the existing security methodology and technologies used by the Israeli national infrastructure, military, and government organizations. These people who served their duty for multiple years have developed techniques of identifying problems in the security posture and following that, identifying the best ways to close those issues. Today, the company holds a pool of talent that is quite unique, world-leading red team experts, managing also a comprehensive community of red team experts around the world. With this team, we're actually able to serve customers from the Fortune 1000 landscape, with offices already established in US, UK, Italy, and of course, Israel. In the last few years, we are able to serve organizations throughout the globe in multiple industries, both in the financial, including banking, insurance, and venture capital, as well as in others, including utilities, energy, manufacturing, chemical, pharmaceutical, communication, retail, and transportation. Throughout the experience with those customers, CYE professionals were able to gain experience with multiple types of attack vectors, multiple incident response that occurred over the years, multiple method of understanding the different critical assets within the organization. This experience gained over multiple verticals is going to be also useful applying it to the next organization we're going to work with together with you. From our experience in the last few years, we would like to share with you a little bit of the security insights. Some elements or statistics that we are able to identify. This is not general cybersecurity statistics, but things that we have actually identified. Initially, I would say that in 94% of the cases, our attacks are attempt to breach the organization existing security posture were successful and were not effectively detected. This could be due to many reasons, among them lack of training, procedures, business understanding. This means that an external perpetrator like ourselves was able actually to access the organization to the most critical assets. In most cases, I would say 50% at least, the methods that were applied were not sophisticated attacks and could have been stopped by applying very easy methods to be solved without additional heavy investment. Those things that are in many cases known but just are overlooked. It is important to say that organizations are not always successful in presenting their existing cybersecurity strategy to the board or to the decision makers and receiving the right funding, resource pool, and ability to communicate or make effect within the organizations. This is critical because applying the right techniques in presenting the existing risk and the future plans is critical for getting the right resources internally. 35% of the customers we work with did not look effectively on the supply chain, vendors, and third-party organizations they work with, which in many cases could be a weak point in the security posture and could provide access to the organization network and data. And maybe last point, in most cases today we still see corporate data that could be found outside of the enterprise due to employees or business activities, which at the end of the day gain information that hackers can use when trying to identify the best routes into the organization's network. We are working with organizations throughout the security journey. Just to remind ourselves, what is the security journey? At every organization, it's important to assess what is the current situation, either using manual or automated means in order to understand the ongoing posture of the organization. As mentioned, not only that, also looking at the supply chain, the vendors, and understand their risk and how these risks may apply to your existing organization. Once the assessment is done, once all the risks are understood, then it's critical, of course, to create a plan and prioritize using the existing budget, resources, political effect within the organization, and other considerations, the plan that will get us the quickest to improving the security posture and situation. Then, of course, need to identify the tools, the methods to streamline their remediation process and to overcome any lack of experience organization, especially smaller organization, might have. This includes, of course, increasing the security awareness via training, strategy development, and other means to verify that the human factor within the organization is well aware of the risk. And then, unfortunately, sometimes there are situations that occur. Most of them are not published. Organizations are not happy to publish, but we can tell you that on a weekly basis, we support organizations on incidents that have occurred. Some of them are catastrophical, where the entire IT network of the organization is wiped out, and some, of course, are has less effect or has effect on customers. And then, of course, also different regulations kick in with the need to report and update the existing customer base, partners, etc. And the need to have an ability to respond effectively to those incidents is critical in organization life cycle. I think anyone in cybersecurity can identify that this is the journey that is occurring for different organizations. Okay, maybe that's a good time now, after we have this background, to discuss a little bit what CYE is doing and what is CYE's offering. To start with, I would like to present Hyver. Hyver is CYE's main platform. It is a continuous security assessment cloud-based platform. It is powered by our technology, but also human experts and vetted community that we manage, gathering holistic security posture, utilizing identify multiple attack routes, and then streamlining the mitigation in the most cost-effective way. Okay, let's try to understand a little bit in more details what that actually means. So Hyver has several layers and several elements inside them, and we'll try to cover them one by one. The first element will be the assessment, identifying what is the current situation or cybersecurity situation or cybersecurity posture of the organization. We're doing that using three main elements. One is our own experts, which you can see in the middle, vetted community, and automatic assessment platform. So let's see what does that actually means. So a good assessment starts with a reconnaissance stage where the perpetrator is trying to identify potential windows or holes within the organization security. This reconnaissance, for example, will try to identify any websites that the company has, and within the website will try to identify a login page. In the login page, different techniques would be applied to try to identify a vulnerability, exploit it, and actually move inside the website. This could be SQL injection, use an enumeration, password spray, password brute force, different methods that hackers are using actually to get inside the web and then be able to move to the next task or the next chain. So at the beginning, we've done that manually, but 3 years ago, we decided to apply all of this information and knowledge using machine learning techniques into CYE automatic attack platform. And we've been able to develop thousands of different attack chains that are based on real attacks, and our existing market research covers all MITRE attack steps. These are things that we're using ourselves, so they are field proven, and of course, they are adaptive to the specific customer environment, depending on what type of windows we might able to find. During the assessment or during this execution of the machine, there will be automatic discovery of the different assessments of the different assets, that would be within the organization or what is exposed from the organization. Of course, no installation and no configuration is actually needed in order to run that. So the first element in the assessment is applying an automatic techniques, which actually gives us very wide understanding of the security situation within the organization. Now, sometimes using only virtual hacker or only technology doesn't get you all the way in where you would like to have, because at the end of the day, hackers, the people who are actually trying to make damage, are people, are human beings, and are applying all kinds of things that only humans can do. So this is why we are actually providing a combination of both the virtual hacker as well as two other human elements. The first element is our CYE experts teams. We have today three very advanced national level CYE experts that are actually able to take the outcome of the machine and try to continue the work, getting all the way to the business critical assets, which we'll discover more in a few seconds. The second element, which is I think critical and gives us a lot of depth, is the community. So over the last 2 years, we're able to develop a community of more than 900 hackers around the world, white hat hackers from 23 different countries. These hackers are actually could be tasks by CYE in order to ask them to provide us exploitation or understanding what is the best way in order to gain access to a specific device, operating system, etc. So let's say we have a customer where we identify the machine with a operating system or application that is not well known. So we have two options. One is to try to do the exploitation ourselves, and second, which we'll do maybe in parallel, is to ask the community, hey, does anyone has experience with ABC type of technology? The community is not aware of who is the customer and what exactly is the situation. They are just tasked to understand if they have tools in order to try to break in to this technology. Now, there's a gamification process inside, and the vetted community will actually provide us different techniques. We will validate them, and only if they validated by our experts, they will actually be used going forward. And the person in the community that actually has the provider that will get a reward as part of he or her contribution. Now, this gives us actually a multinational approach towards the assessment. We can try to use techniques that are used by Russian groups, by Chinese groups, by Korean groups, by American groups, by European groups. So there are different methods different hackers are being using, and this gives us an ability to apply, as I said, the multinational approach towards the assessment, getting us at the end of the day clear finding and mitigation graph, which we'll present in a few minutes. So we have done the assessment, we have applied the community, our experts, and of course using the assessment platform, the automatic assessment platform, to understand excellent where we are. Then we want to have actually a look not only on our own organization, but also on the ecosystem, or specifically provide the vendor assessment on those third parties that are being also connected to the organization. So the third party the assessment is done by applying passive means. For third party, usually you don't have any approval to try to do an assessment. So we're just applying reconnaissance, the reconnaissance stage, and collecting information we're able to identify without, of course, actually trying to exploit them. So fully passive, the organization that we're assessing will not even notice that. The way we're doing it is we take the same machine you see before, and we're stopping it only at the reconnaissance stage. We will be looking for different indicators. These are real indicators that the hackers can actually, going forward, could do something with them. This could be identifying link credentials that are found in the internet or the dark web, looking for development or test sites that in many cases would be less secure, looking to see if there is any technologies the company is using which is known to be vulnerable, or if the community has already identified some bugs or other issues in bug bounty programs that could be seen around, if there are insecure login page, if there are protocols that are being exposed that are not well protected, if the employees has remote connections to the company that could be maybe utilized, GDPR, and other many indicators that are actually being applied in order to provide the assessment over the organizations. All of those are actually done automatically by the passive assessment and providing a clear score according to the NIST framework on different security domains, and of course an overall score as well. These scores could be provided to each and every vendor or third party that you're working with. And as you can see, at the end of the day, the risk is not only standalone, it's also presented comparing to the industry in which the company operates with. So you can easily see if the third party you are utilizing or working with has a better average or less than the industry, and also from the geography they're in, right? So maybe German customers would have different, let's say, protection level comparing to other countries. So you don't only want to be good, you want to also to be good comparing to the neighbors that you are with. As we know, the hacker sometimes will just go to people who are less secure than the others because it's easier. So for me, this example, you can see that vendor 2, cyber hygiene is not that good, and you may want to apply some questions. And of course, we have the reasons why we provided that. So you can actually go and ask and request for improvement, or you can consider changing the vendor. By the way, the same technology that you see over here is actually being used by insurance companies to identify the security risks of companies before they provide cyber insurance. Okay, so this was related to the vendor assessment, and now we're moving into the exposure visibility, or which say one of the most important elements within CYE solution, within Hyver. So when we provide the assessment, what we actually want to do is to get into the organizational critical assets. So in the beginning of the assessment, we'd actually, together with the customer, define what will be those things that are, if they are being hacked or breached, they could cause catastrophic damage to the organization. Some of those, for example, could be critical infrastructure that is stopping from work, privacy that is being violated, sensitive data that is being exposed outside to people who should not see that, reputation, and there could be other critical assets as example. On the left-hand side of the graph, what you are seeing is actually the threat sources, the situation, those scenarios that we agreed we want to evaluate. This could be someone who's an attacker starting from the internet, an internet attacker, what we also call sometimes black box approach. Someone who has no information about the company is trying to get in. The other example could be on-site attacker, someone who is being able to access the building, coming as a visitor, something like that, and is trying to get into the organization while actually physically in the building. Third case will be a rogue employee, an employee that has access to the company's network, and either as he's fooled or because of a mistake or because, by intentional, he wants actually to go and gain access to the business critical assets. And the fourth example here is the third party or ecosystem, organizations that are connected, via cloud or other APIs, for example, that, could be an entry point to the attack. So during the assessment, again, using the manual work, the experts, the community, or the automatic attack machine, we'll try to start with a reconnaissance and, for example, identify a known public website. And then we'll try, as we mentioned before, to apply different techniques to try to get into the server of the website. For example, applying authentication bypass and then getting access to a restricted internet interface. So each hexagon over here is actually a new position that perpetrator was able to gain into the customer or the company network, which is better than the previous one. So let's take another example. So using file upload into a specific web page, the company was, or the hacker was able to run some code, which actually provided access into the DMZ application server. So the hacker is already somewhere within a place that someone outside of the organization should not be. And going forward, different techniques are going to be applied, different positions are going to be held within the organization. Now, it might be that we actually identified during an assessment hundreds of different vulnerabilities. We don't care about all of the list, or we care, but that's not what's important. What we actually want to identify is those vulnerabilities, those problems that we're able to exploit that helps us to gain movement within the organization to a better position, that from that we're able to move into the next position and all the way to the right hand to the business critical assets. So now, instead of identifying 900 vulnerability, we actually focus only on the much smaller number that we're able to use in order to get into the organizational critical assets. Now, what you see here is not a simulation. This is actually a result of CYE using Hyver getting into the business critical assets that we have identified before the assessment. If we're not able to get to those assets, then this means that, at least from our experience, the organization is secure, the posture is good. But if we're able to get in, and to tell the truth, in most cases we are able to get in, then of course this means that someone who wants to harm the organization could try to apply the same methods and get in. So instead of talking now on all the vulnerabilities that we're able to identify, we're now talking on a new terminology we created called attack routes. This will be actually the routes the hackers could be using. So the entire chain from left to right, it gets us from one of the threat sources to the organizational critical assets. And of course, what we want to do now is try to see how to fix them. But firstly, getting the understanding and insight of what are the attack routes that are actually possible, again, from our experience, getting a much more focused discussion rather than 900 vulnerabilities. Great, so now we have an understanding of the risk either from the ecosystem and of course from the internal assessment. The next stage will be to plan and remediate using our predictive analytics and optimal mitigation planner model within Hyver. So let's see how it actually works. Hyver actually is able to move the discussion or move the work from looking at cyber elements into mathematical graph analytics discussion. As you see before, we're able to identify the attack routes. Behind each of the arcs, there's actually a lot of information. As we mentioned, each arc in the graph is actually exploitation that has been successfully been implemented by Hyver. Now, based on our experience, based on the community, which is a good baseline, we're able to calculate what is the severity, or the likelihood, or the ease of exploitability of this specific exploit. Meaning, what percentage of the community of hackers could actually being able to utilize this exploitation? 92%, meaning majority of the population be able to use it. Maybe this is a very well-known vulnerabilities with very existing tools and scripts that could be applied, and any 14 years old hacker that is seeing YouTube could try to utilize this. 48%, meaning that only half of the community could actually utilize this. This is probably means this is a more complicated and require experienced hacker with specific tools and maybe specific vulnerabilities. So utilizing this mathematical information on the graph, now we're actually able to calculate something very important, which is what is the most critical route. Actually, utilizing and multiplying those probabilities, we're able to calculate what is the most probable attack route a hacker might exploit. So instead of looking at the beginning, at least, instead of looking at all of the routes, so we already filtered from looking at all the vulnerabilities to looking only at the routes. Now we would like first to focus only on this route. This route that if as a hacker is trying to move forward, this will be the most probable one that he or she could take in order to get into the business critical assets, in this case, the company's reputation. So then the discussion starts on how to stop or how to cut this route. And here we can apply different techniques. What we'd like to understand out of this entire route, which arc is actually the one we want to handle, right? And there could be different considerations. A specific arc could require a change of software, change of permission set, change of structure of the network, applying new technology. So fixing an arc could be something very simple or something very complex. And simple and complex is different for different organizations. Sometimes it's a matter of budget. Sometimes it's a matter of time. Do you have enough time to implement a new technology or to change the procedures? Or it could be a lack of resources. Do you have the specific knowledge to change the architecture of the cloud security elements? So this could be different considerations with the organization based on the tech routes we're able to find and based on the different restrictions or the customer considerations, we would be able to calculate the most optimal method of improving towards the customer, specific customer itself. So with a workshop and with other elements, we're able to identify that, for example, in this case, fixing the file upload issue will be the most cost effective, meaning it will be the best security improvement comparing to the dollars or euros that actually is being invested. So by fixing that, this actually route is going to be fixed. Great, but we're not over. Now we have the residual risk. So after fixing the first route, we actually have now the second route that needs to be addressed, right? As you can see, the map is of course thinner already because of the change we did before. And now we'll try to handle and understand also how to fix the situation of a rogue employee able to get access to sensitive data. And as you go forward, applying in average fixes to a 6.4 routes, we're able to improve the security posture of the organization by 95%, making it much more difficult for any internal or external attacker to try to get to the critical assets. So the company, of course, can decide how much of the residual risk they would like to have and do they have enough resources. But the way we're able to prioritize the project or the elements to fix is clearly according to the most critical and severe routes, letting when the budget or the time is ending, you're only left with the most or the least critical risk that is there. And also this map could be easily be presented to the board and explaining what will be the required element, projects, resources in order to reduce the risk. And when they are finished, does the board able to live with the residual risk that is being left? And if not, what will be the actions that are actually being required? So making the discussion with the board much simpler and easy to comprehend without being too techy with some people that are not looking at the technical elements. Now, behind each of those arcs, it's not only an arc in a graph in a nice presentation. Actually, there's a full system, and what you could see is both the exploitation that has been done, some evidence on how it has actually been done in the specific case of the specific situation and customer, and also a recommendation for mitigations or what should be done in order to stop that from occurring. So at the end of the day, the customer who is using Hyver has both the graphical or the graph way of understanding the attack routes, but also the technical information behind each of those arcs, describing what needs to be fixed. And you know what, once those elements are actually be fixed, there is a fixed it button, and then we'll move into the reassessment situation, right? So the fact that something has been fixed, allegedly be fixed by the different teams, doesn't mean that it was done well or it was effective. So once the organization believes it is finished with the situation improvement, we can see if that is actually has the right effect we planned for it to have, and if not, we can are discussing what will be the next situation. So it's much easier for the communication between the different teams under the CISO or the IT teams and size experts in order to validate that this is actually effective. Looking at the organization by itself is critical. As we said, we want to understand, how easy it is for someone to get in. But maybe not less critical will be to understand how your organization is actually compared, to similar organizations in the industry. As we mentioned, sometimes hackers are not looking for someone specific. They are looking to see where it's the easiest, where their return on investment is the highest. So you want to see if you're better protected than others. As we see before, also people will look at yourself as a vendor, as a supplier and see if your security posture is good or not. So it's important to get that view as well. So what you can see in this graph, and this is outcome, another outcome or output of the assessment, will be according to different security domains, how you're comparing to the other organizations in the same industry. So this could be policy procedures, network level servers, etc. And maybe just as an example, so for example, your organization in this case is much better than similar industry organizations in sensitive data protection, maybe due to some GDPR projects that have been done in the last few months. But in the same time, identity management is much less mature than other organizations in the industry, and this could give you indication where you might want to prioritize the next projects and next investment in the organization to verify that you're actually getting to the industry standard. And as we see in this case, there's quite work to do. So this gives you understanding where you are comparing to your peers, and you can ask yourself, is that good or not, and make decisions accordingly. But informed decisions, because here you have the right data. So this was about Hyver, the continuous security assessment platform, which, as we mentioned, is critical to understand where you are and decide how to go forward. With customers that work with us on our subscription platform, a subscription method where we are working year long, and not only in one single assessment, we're actually also able to provide supportive services that are very critical. First of all, based on the information we're getting into strategic cyber programs, supporting the executives and other security leaders on what will be the most relevant and tailored program for their organization to cope with the existing and actual threat scenarios as they evolve over the years. So we're really verifying that the program, if it is tuned, and if not, we're helping to create one. It's very critical to have someone outside of the organization with the right experience in order to do it in the right way. The second element is looking at security operation centers. Sometimes there is an internal or external SOC. Sometimes organizations are in the debate what to do. They don't have anything. So we have a lot of experience in how to empower SOC teams in the procedures, in the processes, in the technology, how to verify the fact that you have someone actually looking at logs and handling different alerts are done effectively, correctly, and when there are attacks actually occur, they are able to identify and respond in the most effective way. Tell you from our experience, unfortunately, in many cases, this is not the truth, both for internal teams and external teams. And what we're doing within part of the year subscription work we're doing with the organization is verifying this is improved. We're also able to provide some training to verify that skill set is in the right level, both for executives or for general employee awareness, to verify there is the ability to identify that you are in an attack and respond to that in the most effective manner. And last but not least is incident response. Customers work with us, get 24/7 incident response support. This means within 2 hours, we're able someone to already work with you, and within 24 hours maximum, someone on site to verify that we're able to identify and actually in the shortest time get the organization into business as normal situation while identifying the root cause and trying to think of what to do in order to remove that, including discussion or enabling the discussion with legal, insurance, and other third-party elements that are not technical within the incident response situation. And you know what? Having the right incident response team that knows you from before and understand the situation could be the big difference between you losing millions of dollars or being effective in the response to the incident. And you know what? There are incidents, they're coming, they're there all the time. And you don't want to find your incident response partner only when the incident actually occurs. Maybe the most effective way to understand how assessment looks like is actually to take a specific case study. So this case study is about a very large bank, a European bank, one with more than 100,000 employees, which has requested security assessment, after they've applied multiple security means, invested tens of millions of euros into their security posture,
and wanted to validate if that is actually, is it working? So the main method that was applied was using black box approach, meaning internet attacker without any prior knowledge about the organization. We decided to try to do it within 4 weeks and see where we're able to get to. And the security operations center of the bank, the SOC team, was aware of CYE team and of course tried to detect it. As we mentioned before, getting into an assessment, we want to define what are the business critical assets, what would be the targets of the attack, and if they are achieved, this means that there is still things to do within the security posture. So the first one was to try to damage the brand, to damage the reputation, which is critical for financial organization. People trust, and that would be something could be devastating. The next one is a little more easy to see, which is to conduct financial fraud or stealing from the bank. Third one will be to be able to get into sensitive data and to privacy issues, which could either problematic from GDPR or just by exposing information that the bank doesn't want others to see. And of course, the fourth one will be downtime of business critical systems that if they are not working, that's a loss of revenue to the bank. Okay, so those were the targets discussed and agreed, and then we went and started to do the assessment. I will not go into the entire technical details because this will require 1 hour by itself, but maybe some, how we started at least. So the company or CYE started by assessing or doing reconnaissance and have identified in parallel to the main banking website, the one that customers actually logging into, we identified a parallel testing or staging or QA website which has similar software where the bank development team is actually working on and getting improvements. Now, sometimes, and in this case as well, security measures on development sites are less harsh in order to allow the testing team to do different tests that are not possible once the entire security methods are being applied. Unfortunately, that means that we could use different techniques and actually get into the testing websites and get actually username and passwords and even administrative username and password of this development website. The next problem was that the same username and password used by the development website were actually the same one that are in the production website. With that in the case, we're actually able within few hours to gain full control of the main banking website. That of course allows us already to achieve some of the goals, including reputation, because we take it down, we could change the code there, etc., and also downtime of business critical system, because this is how many of the transactions are actually being initiated through the website. We didn't stop there. So over the next few days, we're able to slowly get access to different elements in the company, starting the banking application database, and from them to the different applications, accessing into a Windows 2K environment, which was of course less protected, getting access to the IT people themselves, computers, and from there getting, of course, the relevant credentials that were missing, including full control on the network itself and the firewall configurations, etc. And from that, within again a few matter of days, we're able to actually get full control on the entire bank network, different assets, and we could actually do whatever we want within the organization. Again, the goal is not to gain the domain admin, but the goal was to demonstrate an ability to damage the business critical asset as defined. So starting from the bottom, we're able to get access to very sensitive files, that both files that had IP related topics, so the innovation center, the fintech innovation center of the bank, some patents that were about to apply, as well as some VIP data and some elements that could help expose transactions related to a VIP that store their account within the bank. The next one, we're able to get access to the entire video conferencing system, Cisco One, and actually able to see and record any ongoing meeting within the organization. In the picture, you can see the CEO of the bank and his secretary in their executive meeting room. And of course, we record video conferences of the board, of management, and of course, those decisions and discussions, of course, should not be shared with people outside the organization. Going right on the bottom part, we could actually access the entire CCTV or cameras system of this bank security and other building management system, as well as the badge security badge system. This is the system that actually based on who we are, you get different badges with different security credentials that you can get into different rooms. So we could provide ourselves, our own team, with highest clearance badges, and with that we could actually walk into almost any room with the organization, including the data centers and servers rooms, etc. In the middle, in the top, you can see the fact that we're able to control any computer in the organization, including taking pictures from the for executives to see what they're doing, and recording the microphone, the camera, etc. You can imagine what kind of things a real attacker can do with that. The right-hand side is actually starting to be very, very interesting, because we wanted to actually prove financial fraud, as we mentioned before. So what we've done, we're able to change the code. It was not an easy process, but we're able to achieve it, to change actually the code of the ATM software. And with that change, what we were able to accomplish is the fact that someone could actually physically access the ATM, type a PIN code, and actually withdraw 5,000 euro without actually having even an account in the bank. And of course, because we had the control on the CCTV cameras, we could delete the relevant files. So there was no traces of this type of money collection. We did it 10 times. And unfortunately, then we actually gave the money back. We gave the team their envelope with 50,000 euros so they could put it back where they actually belongs. But 50,000 euros were not enough in our case. We wanted to show a much larger scale fraudulent activity. And for that, we wanted to do a wire transfer. Now, the bank had in place an excellent anti-fraud system. So this system that analyzes each and every transaction and try to identify if fraudulent or is it legitimate. We could not bypass easily that system. It was well in place, and if we would do all kinds of things, we would be detected. So we wanted to wait. We waited and to understand what is actually the operational procedures behind this anti-fraudulent system. And what we found out is that there are many transactions that the system identifies as fraudulent, although they are actually legitimate. And for that, there is an exception mechanism that is applied within the software, which allows the managers actually to approve a real transaction which looks fraudulent. So what we've done, we created, because we had access to the software, username and password, we actually added a new exception on a specific amount of 49,842,018 euros, which means that if a specific transaction on this specific amount will be seen in the system, whatever other indicators it might have that is fraudulent, it will go through because it's pre-approved in this exception. This actually required two exceptions, one in the local level and one in the regional level because of the amount. And then we did a transaction to a designated bank account we had as part of the activity. And you know what? No alert was sent to anyone, and not even an email saying a specific exception was being executed. So no one actually knew anything, and we can go away with this almost 50 million euros. At that point, of course, the assessment stopped. The money was, of course, given back without even a cent being taken. And we started to work with the organization, summarizing the data and identifying the attack routes we discussed before. So presenting it very, very clearly to the management what was done, and then starting to build the mitigation process, trying to identify, although the high investment so far, what actually need to be changed. And it's, there are several elements. One of them, for example, they had multiple technologies doing the same, different teams doing similar things, and we could actually give an expert look on what would be the next 12 months look like in improving the security posture. And we were still working with this organization to continuously provide reassessment and focus on different areas in application, in different bank offices in different countries, etc., As both the organization changes and the security landscapes changes, it's important to continue and do the reassessment and focus on different topics. So at the end, the bank was not happy, I would say, with the result of the assessment, but it's better it was done by an organization like ourselves than someone who actually would have been stealing the money or doing the other reputation damage that we've discussed. So this would be the specific use case mentioned. So maybe to summarize the discussion so far, and what I believe makes CYE unique is a combination of the following. First of all, the fact of trying to understand not a specific list of vulnerability, but how an end-to-end attack would look like. Of course, using our technology, our human experts, and the vetted community gives a very, very good understanding and visibility into the organization's current security posture. We're not looking only at the organization as mentioned, but also at the supply chain, the ecosystem, the third parties, giving you a clear understanding of how the overall risk looks like. And once we identify the attack routes and the third party risk, we're able to build an optimized security improvement plan to tackle first the critical routes in those routes to actually block an attacker. And as you go through the remediation support, you do it in a streamline mode to verify the methodology of the mitigation is done in the most effective way. It's not only that, it's supporting the preparation of any plan, working with the boards, with external audits, with the right reports that actually help you to focus on the real element that requires for improvement, both with the management and third-party organization that requires to know more about yourself. And for security prevention and detection solutions, we support to understand which one are the most effective, not just get something that is looking the shiniest, but those that actually are relevant to the situation you're in. As mentioned, there's no setup cost, no installation, no agent. We actually do everything as an external attacker and moving through the organization all the way to the business critical assets if we can, and if we can't, this means the organization is a very good security state. So we'll be happy to work with yourself, getting into the security assessment and supporting in a continuous manner. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to get them by email, as you probably see this video, and continue the discussion on that matter. I would like to thank you very much for spending the time so far and seeing a little bit about CYE. And there's more to come if you want, again, get back to me with any questions. Thank you very much and have a great day.